I'm chatting to Julie Hillier, who's my friend and colleague from Ministry of Handmade, based at Bridgeman Downs on the other side of Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, to where I live. Oh, hi, Julie. Can you start by telling us something about yourself and your business, Handmade, Ministry of Handmade?
Okay, thanks, Jane. Um, Ministry of Handmade is it's like a passion project for me, but it is also my full-time income and is now also my husband's full-time income, which is great. So I have three adult children, two of them are married, and they all still live in Brisbane, and we have worked from home for a very, very long time. Morris and I have been self-employed since before we were even married. So we're used to working together, which is a good thing, seeing we're a business together. So Ministry of Handmade started as basically my business, and it was a plan of a job I had that I wasn't particularly fond of. And because I had got to the point in life, I sort of, you have these moments, and I thought I have spent a lot of my working life doing things that I don't desperately love. I think it's taken me a long time to find out where I was meant to be. Anyway, so I thought I want to finish my life, my working life, doing something I really, really love and that I'm really passionate about. So that's how Ministry of Handmade came about. I grew up I say to people, I grew up in a sewing room. My mum was a dressmaker, the eldest of three girls, with a dad who could turn anything into anything. So I was surrounded by DIY and making do. My parents, were children through the Second World War. They'd lived through tough times. And so I guess the legacy and the heritage I was surrounded by was, you can do this, we can do it. You can be self-sufficient. You can turn that into something else. We'll recycle that. And my parents were very financially prudent because they were able to instill those values into us. They didn't sort of splash money around. We never had flash holidays. But I grew up valuing the fact that things had an intrinsic value, and just because you'd finished with them didn't mean that they were done and destined for the dump. In fact, I used to joke. I'd say we were the only family that potentially would come home with more when we went to the dump or the tip than we took there. But my dad would only bring home things that he knew he could turn into something else, or that he could repurpose into something else. So he was by no means a hoarder, but a very resourceful man who was very, very good with his hands. So good, in fact, that when we were all learning to drive, he went to TAFE, like technical college, at night and learned how to be a panel beater and a spray painter. So he could fix the car himself when the three of us proceeded to put dings in it. Anyway, so I guess that's the context that I grew up in. And then when we started Ministry of Handmade, it's a business that's evolved. It's been very organic, and we didn't have a grand marketing plan. My big goal was, let's just finish my working life doing something I love, but we also had no plan to retire. It wasn't something I was going to do for 5 years and get to a magical age and go, right, down tools, all good, I'm just going to be social and drink Chardonnay for lunch every day. This is something I had planned, and we still plan to keep doing as long as we possibly can, because I'm a really big believer in being active, keeping your mind and your hands busy, and engaging with people of all different ages and staying in life. So that's basically the vision that we had when we started, and really it just grew like topsy. We just started out doing what we knew with some basic sewing workshops, and then my mind never sleeps. Like, I'm always thinking up ideas. As Morris says, ideas are not a problem. And so we would try something new, and if it didn't work, we wouldn't do it again, and if it did, and the business sort of just got a life of its own, which was really, really great. So 7 years down the track, as I said, we're now both full-time. And I think our timing was very, very good, in that we just started off as the resurgence in the interest of handmade and sustainability started to come to the forefront, and people were keen to know how to do things, how to have skills. I think the pendulum had swung back the other way, and people are going, I'm over not knowing how to do all these basic life skills like sewing and repairing my clothes and making my own homewares. So we sort of were able to, we're still riding that wave, and the waves is getting bigger, which is really, really great. And it's, I think, so heartening for us to be able to facilitate that process. So that's enough.
Yeah, that's great. Those skills and life experience that you've outlined sound like they're very useful at this time in coping with the disruption that we're experiencing at the moment with the coronavirus pandemic.
Well, they are, because I, I remember having conversations with people, over the time we've had Ministry of Handmade, and I've always been a person that's quite reserved, and I'm not the sort of person that will just blurt out what I think. I'm quite measured in what I say, but I think that people are beginning to realise that we need to become more self-sufficient. I think what we've done is we've virtually abdicated all responsibility for our lives to third parties, and people can't cook, people can't mend their clothes, people can't grow their own food, and I think it's dangerous territory to get into when a whole culture behaves like that. And we've seen the result of that is that supplies of goods are cut off, and people are running around going, but I don't know what to do. But just to give you a bit of an idea, we've always liked to do things for ourselves. So we have chickens, we have a veggie garden. It's not super amazing at the moment. It was super amazing, and then it's sort of Morris's baby, and he just had a bit of a run of other things he had to deal with, and it got a little neglected, but it's revived. We have native stingless bees, and basically everything. Like if you came to our house, and Jane, you've been here, we've done it all. We've made it all for ourselves because we so value skills, and we value being able to go, I could do that. I could do that. And usually the end result is way better than if you paid money for it. And the other thing is the immense sense of satisfaction you get from actually looking at something and going, I made that. I made that. So, and we've recycled a lot. So I think as a result of being confident in our own selves and what we're capable of, I think that's created a greater sense of flexibility for us in that we can, I don't think we're as rocked as much by what's happening because we trust ourselves. I think the fact we've always been self-employed as well helps you get a stronger sense of being able to back yourself. If it is to be, it's up to me, that's our life.
So how have you been adapting the business to, to move with the changed times where you can't have face-to-face workshops at the moment?
Well, it was a bit of a shock. We ever since Christmas, and you watch this happening in China, and you go, oh my goodness, and they start talking about it, and you're going, oh, will this happen in Australia? And day by day, that reality got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I was like, oh my goodness, really? But I remember I was trimming a hedge out the back, and I was thinking to myself, if push comes to shove and we have to cancel all of our workshops, which is what we've had to do, is an opportunity for us, and we are viewing it as a giant sabbatical in that we now have time to do lots of research and development that we've wanted to do but haven't had the ability to do because we've been fairly time poor. So overnight we made the decision, what I mean is we took the decision quite early before we were required to draw a line and say no more workshops, no more face-to-face. We need to know that our home is safe because between us we're caring, we have the responsibility or shared responsibility for elderly parents. And we thought we can't take the risk of becoming ill ourselves. Heaven forbid that someone would catch something from us, if we had continued to be face-to-face. So it was like, oh, goodness me. So we basically lost a large chunk of our income. Some of it has continued. We do custom making as well, so we're still able to do that, and we pop things out the front and people come and collect them, and a little bit of a smile about, safe distances and all that sort of stuff. But the great thing is, and I don't want to sound flippant because I know there are so many people in really dire circumstances that are hurting so much right now, and I feel for them, but the situation that we're in was that we live very leanly anyway, and we have been able to make the decision to take this time and get creative and replace that income that we have lost by using a completely different business model. So we've gone online, and we've wanted to do this for many years and just it wasn't high enough up the list. It was important but not urgent. So Morris has a background in IT, and he has been very quickly able to scout out what we can do. So we're using Zoom. Not that you need a big background in IT to scout out Zoom. It's reasonably straightforward. We've done a trial class, lampshade workshop, and satisfied ourselves that what we're able to deliver in that online environment is of value to people, and that they're not missing out on a sense of connectedness or the personal touch, because that's really important. It's integral to our business. So that's what we're doing, and we are now ready to schedule some online classes. And the beauty of that is that our catchment used to be like this big, you know, the people who lived in southeast Queensland and the people we could physically visit on our road trips, and we've done a lot of travel as well. But now our reach is global. We've had people message us from this morning, a lady from Toronto, a lady from Texas, and, you know, for quite a number of years we've had people saying, oh, what can you send us some, you know. So our reach has just exponentially grown overnight, which is, for us, it's a silver lining. And we've always been very big believers that in every adversity there are the seeds of an equal or greater benefit. You just have to look for them. And please don't think I'm being trite, because Morris in particular has dealt with some horrendous tragedy in his life, and even through that his mantra was always, in every adversity are the seeds of an equal or greater benefit. And it's just a paradigm shift. It's about being able to say, life as I know it is not the same. That does not mean that life is over or your lifestyle is over. It just means you need to readjust. And I think one of the benefits is if you can be nimble and adaptive and not rigid and fixed, and say, well, you know, we got to stay inside all the time. I'm bored out of my brain. I've got nothing to do. My attitude is, if you have to be inside all the time, do it well. You know, whatever conditions are put upon you, if you can just take the stance of being the victor, not the victim, and go, okay, well, if this is where I need to be and this is what I have to do, what's the best way I can do this? How can I make the most of this? So the online response to our business is a classic example of going, well, we've been forced to move, and it's so exciting. And then we're also launching, we're very excited that on the 1st of May, that's our arbitrary launch date, we'll be launching a PDF download pattern, like a garment, a top, that we've been working with for a number of years, that people keep asking about. And the beauty of that is that it's a base pattern with lots of modules that people can sort of almost click off and on, a bit like a Meccano set, I guess. And people have been like, they're asking all the time now, when will it be out? When will it be out? And the beauty of that is, for such a long time, I've wanted to be able to give people the bare bones of sewing in such a simple way that they can understand it and feel confident to tackle it for themselves. And this will do that, because they'll get the basics, and then their confidence will grow, and each module will teach a new skill that they can not only apply to that garment but other garments, so that we can have people more in control of what they're wearing, and the sense of achievement and control that comes from that will be fabulous.
They're exciting innovations, Julie. Well done. And maybe can you share a bit about your, you know, sort of daily routine, you know, things that you might do every day, and perhaps your own making and creating and upcycling, and how that helps you stay calm and optimistic?
Yep. We have decided that we've always worked from home. So being at home, this doesn't feel foreign to us. It's just that we don't have people coming to visit. But we have maintained a routine. We haven't changed pretty much anything that we do. So it's still get up a couple of mornings a week. We exercise. We're still probably, on the days that we don't exercise in the morning, we'll go for a long walk in the afternoon, because we really believe that keeping physically active is great for your health, and it's also great for helping cope with, you know, any excess adrenaline you might have in your body from, you know, anxiety that comes from thinking about too much about what's going on with the virus. We have, so Morris feeds the chickens, he feeds the dog, he waters the garden if it needs watering. We sit down, we have a coffee together, and we have a meeting, and we do that every morning, and we look at what are our objectives for that week, and what are we going to do today. And then, even though we're working together in the same space, sometimes I'm working on something he's not familiar about. So we have a debrief and say, what are you doing today? What are you doing today? What are our objectives? And so we just keep that pottering along. In terms of what am I doing for my own well-being, I'm working harder than I was before, trying to, get all these things happening. And I know that that's just an initial period of doing the groundwork for some stuff, and that has to be done. But I still really highly value the joy that comes from making. So I have been doing some knitting. So I have a granddaughter who's 5, so I'm knitting her a cardigan, and I've been doing some sewing for me. I have been doing a little bit of basket coiling. I've made a zip purse. I've been gardening. I like to retreat to activities that provide comfort, and often they're things that potentially aren't something new. There's something you're familiar with that you have, even if it's not a conscious memory, you've done this before, and that you've mastered it before, and that you can just, it's almost like nestle into it and just let that be your focus and your comfort, rather than being overwhelmed by everything else that's happening around you. So I'm taking time to do those. The bulk of the things I like to do for myself are generally things I can do in front of the television, because we have a few pet things we like to watch every now and again, and it's nice to be, I cannot sit and watch the TV. If I've got nothing to do, I'm all like a bit, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, my hands aren't busy, because I just find something about the pattern of moving your hands and watching something grow before your eyes. I never cease to be enthralled by the fact that you can take different things and put them together and make something new. And generally, every part of making involves 3 things. It's tools, and it's materials, and it's a technique. Like knitting, you need wool and knitting needles, and you need the process of knitting. Same with crocheting. It's exactly the same as sewing a dress or building a bridge. It's techniques, it's tools, and it's materials. And that act of birthing something that looks way different from what you started with is such a tonic. And I think people are discovering that more and more. I've been watching people's comments on Instagram, and they're saying things like, I'm cleaning out my cupboards and I'm finding all my unfinished projects, and the sense of joy that comes from going back to something and just losing yourself in that for a little while. I mean, it's scientifically proven. Lots of people have done research into the effect that making can have on you, and I think we need to avail ourselves of that, and also not fall into the trap of thinking, particularly people that are really busy. The thought of having to homeschool, some children, as well as try and work from home, and you're not used to it. I can imagine lots of people are really, really overwhelmed, and that not to see making as a luxury, and I don't have time for that, I've got too much to do. It's actually a tonic. It's actually about helping you be a better you by availing yourself of the benefits of making.
So what's your best piece of advice for what might be ahead of us as we come out the other side of this situation?
How long have you got? One piece of advice. My greatest hope is that people will have experienced, putting aside the drama and the trauma of everything that is happening, people will have reacquainted themselves with a simpler life. The act of doing less, the act of not rushing around madly in the car all the time, the act of sitting with your children after dinner and doing a jigsaw puzzle, the act of picking up the phone and calling a friend and saying, how are you? And that life will be slower and stiller and more precious, and we will have a renewed appreciation of what is truly, truly important, and that is the relationships in your world, and the people around you and what they mean to you, and how precious life is and how beautiful life is without all the periphery that we've tended to put into it. So I guess my piece of advice would be embrace what's happening. I know that sounds really weird. We have no choice, so why fight it? Do everything you possibly can to stay safe and to move through this, but don't fight it, go with it, because as I said, the seeds of an equal or greater benefit lie in adversity, and we will uncover riches that we either didn't know we had or that we thought we lost. Yeah, so that would be it. Just be searching for the seeds. Search for the seeds. That's my piece of advice, because great things. I'm an optimist. Great things will come from this amidst the tragedy and the sadness. And I'm trying not trying to downplay that at all. But great things will come from this, and people will go, "Oh my goodness," you know. Yep.
Julie, thank you so much. I mean, it's so inspiring to hear your words and to see you. A bit sad to know that I won't be visiting your studio anytime in a big hurry, but you know, we're so fortunate, I guess, because similarly I'm working from home, but this is part of this interview is part of my virtual Churchill, where, you know, I had to give up my plans for the year because I couldn't travel.
So you've done it, and you know, as I said to you, this platform potentially gives you access to so many more people than you could have fitted into a tour. It could be, you know, way better. You know, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, it's disappointing not to go, but you know, the seeds are there, the gold is still there. Maybe more of it, because you just go to.
And, you know, in many ways, it's upcycling the opportunities all the time, isn't it? It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it that matters. So lovely to see you, and we'll catch you another time, Julie. Thanks.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay. Bye.